100's a lot cooler than 30. It's about 70 higher. We did some impressive math on this one as well and confirmed that 100 is just a much more powerful number to have access to than 30.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Master of None here. Yesterday, Arenanet showed off the crazy new elite specializations for Revenant, Warrior and Elementalist. I'll have a link in the description to their livestream in case you want to watch the whole thing. If not, this video will give you a short summary of the 3 new specs and my first impressions on them. First of all, these look amazing. The little trailers Arenanet had put out prior did not do them any justice. They also have so much more going on compared to the first set of specs Arenanet had shown off. Don't forget, we actually get to play with these elite specializations ourselves next week. Only thing you have to do is log into GW2 between the 21st and the 25th of September and you should be able to create a new beta character. With that out of the way, let's get started. First off was the Vindicator for Revenant. I mean, what can I say? It's a Revenant with a greatsword. So many people wanted it and Arenanet gave it to us. I was a bit disappointed when I was watching the trailer since I hoped the greatsword attacks would look more like Balthazar's attacks in Path of Fire. So more a mix between melee and range with the weapon floating beside you every now and then. However, watching the livestream completely changed my mood. The greatsword is definitely the least interesting part of the kit. It's a power weapon that favors being surrounded by enemies. So it's a counterpart to the one-handed swords that refs can wield, where you want to isolate your target. This theme of the greatsword favoring multiple enemies also carries over to your new legend, the legendary Alliance stance. And here is where the interesting part about the kit begins. You get to channel Saint Victor and Archimeros, 2 famous Luxon and Karzik heroes from Kanta, simultaneously. Now how does this work? Basically, whenever you use a utility skill, it flips over to its other state. As an example, Archimeros has an engage skill, which then flips over to a disengage skill from Saint Victor. So you get this very cool back and forth by weaving them together and managing if you currently want to be more offensive or defensive. You also have a new F2 which costs energy and instantly flips your utility skills to the other side. This gives you more agency about the state of your utility skills and allows for a more purely offensive or defensive playstyle, by using them all in one state, flipping them back with F2 and being able to use them in the same state again. I'm a bit worried about how swapping out of this legendary Alliance stance will feel, since you then just go back to core ref, so to say. As a player, I would probably prefer to stay in that stance. Having double the utility skills could also lead to some energy management problems, which might feel clunky, but we'll have to wait and see until we get our hands on it. The other big part of the kit is the modification of your dodge. You only get 1 dodge, and the Grandmaster traits of Vindicator changes it, similar to how Daredevil functions. The crazy damage one we saw in the trailer has a really long dodge frame attached to it, but it also costs 150 endurance. So in the time you get to dodge once, another character can dodge 3 times. For this to be worth it, the payout has to be huge. You give up so much by being able to dodge so little. There is one Grandmaster trait which makes it cost 50 endurance though, so just like a regular dodge. But you still only get to have 1. This one is a bit more defensive and gives allies that you hit barrier and healing. In short, I think Vindicator has some really cool ideas, but I have some reservations with how everything works together. I'm concerned that the kit won't flow nicely and will feel clunky or too restrictive with the dodge mechanic. One last thing, the elite skill of Archimeros is freaking awesome. You summon this huge ghost that charges up a spear with a range of 2000 and you just nuke people from far. I really want to see some 5-man Revenant montages in World v World when this thing launches.
Let's see what we get here. I'm firing this off. We're gonna see 350,000 damage. Okay, that's actually a bit lower. There's some variance in weapons. I've seen about 450, 475,000 damage is kind of the top end.
Let's talk about Bladesworn. This one already had me hyped by just the trailer. I love Monster Hunter, and this just reminds me so much of that. The mechanics are a bit like a charge blade or a gun lance, while the animation remind me much more of the longswords from Monster Hunter. When warriors specialize into Bladesworn, they lose their regular weapon swap in combat. Instead, they get access to their new weapon, the gun saber. Your adrenaline is also replaced by something called flow, and it doesn't charge with hitting people anymore. Instead, it charges steadily when in combat, and there are a couple of interactions to increase your flow rate. When your flow bar is full, you can press F2 and you start charging up. The more you charge, the more damage you will do, and this scales exponentially. It puts you in this preparation state where you are basically immobile, except a short blink. In this state, your 1 to 3 skills on Gun Saber change to these huge damage skills. Skill 1 does the most damage, but hits in melee. Skill 2 moves you forward, and Skill 3 shoots a ranged projectile. The amount of burst damage you can do with this is absolutely bonkers. The rest of the Bladesworn kit is all about managing ammo. You get a new skill type called Armaments. They all have ammunition, but firing them off back to back can give you bonus effects. As an example, your heal skill only heals you for a small amount, but gives you a buff which heals you again for a much larger amount after 3 seconds. You can now either wait for that heal, or make the decision to press your heal skill again, overriding that buff and getting offensive boons instead. You also get an offhand pistol that plays with this mechanic. Skill 5 actually has 6 charges that you spend all at the same time for big burst damage, and pistol 4 gives you back 3 of those charges. The elite skill also gives all of your ammunition skills instantly a charge. This is some crazy cooldown reduction and could be used with shouts, your gun saber, armaments, rifle, and on and on. There are so many possibilities. The animations are just so cool for this spec, and I can't wait to try it out. I have no idea if it's actually going to be good somewhere. That of course heavily depends on the tuning, but just because of that Monster Hunter association I have, I hope it's going to be the meta PvE DPS spec. Killing big monsters and dragons with your gun saber, blasting little ads in the face with your offhand pistol, it just sounds so cool. Lastly, the Catalyst. When the game first launched, and up until Heart of Thorns, I was an Elementalist main. It was the first character I created, and definitely the one that I played the most of all the classes. However, ever since the first Elite specializations were released, Ellie never really grabbed me anymore, and I'm not a big fan of the Elite specs. Apparently, over the years, Ellie also fell out of the meta and has become a bit of a meme. Catalyst, however, looks incredible. They get a hammer, which is a mid-range weapon in fire and air attunement, and a melee weapon in earth and water. The animations are again gorgeous, and honestly, this is how I had imagined Tempest to look like back in Heart of Thorns. Summoning tornadoes with your hammer, conjuring these floating orbs around you in the different elements and then unleashing them on your enemies. A quick note on those orbs, respectively skill 3 on hammer. It is a really cool design skill, and it summons an orb that damages enemies around you and gives you a buff based on your attunement. By pressing it again, it shoots out towards your opponent. However, if you now switch attunement and press skill 3 again, you summon an additional orb and refresh the duration on all of them. This allows you to weave through your elements, getting stronger as you go and having this big payout at the end. I haven't even touched on the unique specialization mechanic yet, the Jade Sphere. By fighting you get energy, similar to adrenaline on Warrior, and can then summon your Jade Sphere. This creates a combo field at your chosen location and pulses boons to allies. What's really interesting about this is the field actually changes with your current attunement. So if you summon it in fire and later go into water, the field will actually also change to a water field and give you different boons and buffs. For DPS players in PvE, air and fire are probably the most interesting, since fire gives you might and air gives you quickness. One note on the field. The radius is rather small, so you only get to cover a small area. This might feel a bit restrictive and annoying, but this is another thing that we just have to play with first to come to a conclusion. The new utility skills of the Catalysts are called augments. Augments have a basic effect, but an additional effect when they are used within range of your Jade Sphere. For example, Fortified Earth gives you a block, and if you use it in your Earth Sphere, it will also give you Barrier. This rewards the player that uses its skills a bit more deliberately, which I think is a very engaging mechanic. The only thing about the Catalyst that has me a bit confused is where Arenanet wants to position it amongst the other specializations. Arenanet maybe leaned a bit too much into the downstate meme and promised more sustain in battle with the Catalyst. However, I thought that was already what Weaver was supposed to do with its sword main hand, barrier on dual skills, evades and so on. So I wonder if they will try to give Weaver a new identity. In PvP, I could see the Catalyst be more of a team fighter while Weaver is very much a duelist, so at least there's that. There was a lot more cool stuff that they showed off, but I really want to try to keep this video short. These 3 specializations have so much more going on compared to the first 3. And a quick word on the traits. They seem also much better designed because it actually feels like you have multiple viable and interesting choices. With Harbinger and Virtuoso, it was basically the case of I have to take this trait for a power build or this one for the Condi build. And there were no interesting choices to be made. And that's all I wanted to currently say about the showcase specs. I can't wait to try them out on the 21st and would love to hear your opinions. What are your first impressions? Are you excited for these elite specs? I'm probably going to do 1 or 2 videos on the beta, but I haven't decided yet in what format. I thought maybe a roaming montage would be a cool thing to do, since I've always wanted to try to make one years ago. So in preparation of that, I hopped into World v World, and for the life of me I couldn't find any group smaller than 8, and I was just getting destroyed. Obviously, I'm also way worse at the game now as well, which just added to the frustration. Not sure if it was my server or if solo roaming just died out over the years that I was gone. I'm now thinking about trying them in PvP or even just in regular open world. If you have anything particular that you would like to see, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or even consider subscribing. It helps me out a ton and is completely free, but more importantly, I hope to see you in the next one.